Hello everyone, welcome to my Dragonbane solo campaign. Wow, chapter 3, session 1. We're entering a new area, a whole new chapter. A little bit of old business, just a tiny bit here. Normally between chapters it's nice to take a little bit of a breather, but that's fine. As I mentioned, I would review heroic abilities I have. I'm definitely giving Izzek a heroic ability. Why not? We're halfway through. If I don't give it now, when am I going to get a chance to have anything? Besides, it might allow me to challenge more aggressive combat, which would be kind of fun. I went with defensive, which allows me to basically parry an attack without using an action. That's kind of nice. That's almost like a free action. So we'll definitely go with that. Boy, there's some good ones to choose from though. I almost chose Dragon Slayer, which gives you an extra D8 against monsters. I almost chose Shield Block, which gives you a boon on parrying. Anyway, defensive is where I went. Let's see, we've completed all my skill ups. I can't believe I only got 3 skill ups out of like 12 rolls. Not exactly a big night for me on skill ups, and they were all kind of like silly little things too. Hunting and fishing and bluffing or bushcraft. Well, I guess who knows? Could be useful. So anyway, as you saw from my little bit of a recap of chapter 2, and when I first started talking about playing, this solo campaign, some of my goals with it. I modeled it after Deepfall Breach, which is kind of a waypoint system. As you go through the waypoints, there are obstacles and encounters in your path. Ultimately, you overcome those obstacles and encounters and problems to make it to the end chapter or the end waypoint, accomplish your goal, and move on to the next chapter until you finally have completed your whole story. But obviously, I felt a little need, one way or the other, to somehow tie chapter 2 together a little bit into something kind of like a story, even though they were meant to be just individual waypoints and ultimately were, but I found a fun way to kind of put a little point on the whole story. So it's obviously something I enjoy. So if I enjoy it, heck, I'm here to lean into the things I enjoy. So I've kind of gone back through chapter 3. I am intentionally making chapter 3 basically one long story of Ser Izzek Loosejaw's journey through the elf home wetlands where no elf dwells. Of course, it's still going to be waypoints, but there's going to be maybe more of a theme as we travel along through these waypoints. So, I think the first waypoint, which we'll be doing in a second, will just mostly kick off, I think, the story, so we know what's going to be going on as we proceed. But first, I do have a little bit of an intro. I think I did this for all my chapters, just a little bit of a description of what the chapter is about. Let's see, here we are. The Vacant Empire. I do still have a threat. Not been working out well for me, though. When you only have 5 waypoints, but 6 dice, I seem to not really get more than 1 threat per waypoint. I don't really think about it. I may change it after tonight. There's not really anything too exciting going on tonight other than just talking and story and prologue. So maybe I'll increase this down to a D4. Maybe I will just remember to move this dice up when I encounter more failures. Really amp it up a little bit. Or I may just ignore it completely depending on how I feel. But it is funny, it's not played any effect so far. But the threat for chapter 3, something in the wetlands is stalking you. You sense it at night, out of sight from the campfire. All attempts to find it and drive it off have failed. When you're at your weakest, this threat will trigger. One of these days I'm going to trigger this threat. Let's see. Our first waypoint. An ancient monolith lies mostly buried under the wet marsh. If it can be read, it memorializes the site of a long ago battle. A ghost rises screaming from the depths of the battlefield, and a horrid geese is placed upon you. Complete the ghost's request or face a devastating curse. That's going to be the theme, I think, the story for this chapter. So, let's roll on down that road. Where we left off Izzek last, he was standing on the other side of a bridge leading from the grasslands to the wetlands. Very happy to be out of the grasslands. I think we've been through that. He was not going to get stuck there and killed like so many others. Wasn't his destination anyway, but he did do his best to stop some of the curses that were being active there. He did lay a ghost to rest, save a couple people's lives, and hopefully destroy the trap to prevent future deaths. He's a hero, Mr. Izzek Loosejaw, even if no one really knows it. As he stands kind of on the other side of this bridge on Pork Chop, putting the grasslands behind him, admiring a whole different environment, feeling a little free of the oppressive voices that were talking before. And just look at this old bridge. It's made of stone, quite ancient. And in fact, the road here in the Elf Home Wetlands too is a rather old road, and it's fairly wide. It's guess made of more solid material than even the grasslands was. You know, this road appears to be made maybe of a sort of broken cobblestone, and is still fairly intact, but it's ancient. I mean, you can tell all the stones are cracking, and weeds and grass is growing up through it and around it and covering it. As he proceeds, he pulls out his map presented to him by the grocer of Derby on the Downs, the map that was provided to him from the witch of Bent Oak Swamp to find a safe path through these wetlands. He now understands, I guess, kind of what they were discussing as he travels down this road. It does branch several times, but the map always steers him a certain direction and to follow one branch and not another. And he kind of begins to understand why. As he travels about an hour and a half, and these wetlands are not a natural wetlands. These lands are flooded. There are several points where the road is covered by 2 to 6 inches of water. It's very hilly land, so there's plenty of land above water, and the road mostly seems to take, a little bit higher ground, but there are plenty of times when the road's submerged, and a lot of the land is submerged underwater, but it was not always so. You can tell at one point this road was built on dry land, but something has flooded these lands under, like I said, about 2 to 6 inches of water at the lowest points of the road. Porktop does not like it one bit. He doesn't like getting his feet wet. Anytime they hit a low spot where water crosses the road, he bounds off over it pretty quickly to go back to high ground. The water itself seems to maybe be slowly moving to the west, coming from the east. But if it's a flow, it's a very slow flowing water. Otherwise, there's not a lot to be seen. It looks like fairly normal land, trees, birds. It's a wilderness, more of a grassy land too, although plenty of trees, rise out of the water and over the hills and things like that. So it's not quite a grassland. It's more of a wooded land. You can tell there are deeper parts, just like anything else. There are gullies, what would once, wash beds and things like that. So even as he travels over this, there are, once again, stone bridges, maybe even underwater, leading over even deeper waters, as said, a flooded land. I think there is a little extra description beyond that. I guess not. Okay, that's it, mostly for the description. So he follows the map, though, pretty precisely, and the forks that the map tells him to take. It does appear this map is trying to steer him towards the highest ground in this swamp and to avoid as much of the deeper waters as possible. Interesting that it was drawn by the witch of the swamplands, as if she was familiar even with this particular land. In fact, we will see, even though he's still some ways from the witch's house in the Bent Oak Swamp, her presence will be felt in these wetlands. Eventually, and these roads do kind of lead almost away from the swamp. The swamp is supposedly to the east, but this winding road really seems to head more northeast. And according to his map, it's going to be a while before it bends back over to the east, where it eventually goes to the swamp. But he's following the safest route. So he comes across this first waypoint. As he's traveling along the edge of a hill, on a hill opposite of him, with kind of a gully in between, he can see an old part of a ruin and an old bent monolith sticking out of the ground. It's lying at about a 90-degree angle, almost toppled over. He's not stuck here. It's not like the grasslands. There are no walls of grass holding him in. Although he's following the map, he's definitely trying to stay away from the lowlands. I guess as time goes on and peace reigns here, he feels more confident to explore. He guides Porkchop through the water over the hill across the way, much to Porkchop's protests. He's not too happy about it. And approaches the monolith on the ground. He dismounts and takes a look at this monolith. It does appear to be an ancient marker of some sort. There is a writing on it. In fact, there is 3 different writings on it. One in Orcish, which he can read. One in an ancient, distorted form of Common, which I will roll into language to see if he can read. And one in a language he does not recognize. So I think I'm going to roll language twice. Once for the broken Common, and once for this language which initially he can't read, to see if he can indeed read all of it. Languages, 5. Let's see how that Common looks to him. He can read that Common language. Let's see if he can read that other language he does not recognize. That he cannot. So it's strange. It is like a 3-language thing on it. Orcish, an Old Common, which he is somewhat familiar with, and a 3rd language. It describes a battlefield. It states, okay, there we go. I had to quickly grab what I'd written off the printer, as I am doing a bit of more of a storytelling this episode. You may indeed find me writing some things down rather than ad-libbing and oracling every single thing. So anyway, Izzek reads this language. The 2 languages he can read, the one he can't. And this is what is written on that monolith. The Battle of Bo Uldeen. Here the Orc warlord Gruk Narzir did slay our beloved Prince Nariman, the last of his line. May all nightkin who walk our lands be scorched under the light of 1,000 suns. May their bodies burn in a white flame. May their ashes be scattered to the netherworld, so that they may never nourish a single tree. In typical movie fashion, Izzek reads those lines aloud. As he finishes that final line, he hears a horrid, howling scream in front of him. In front of him on this battlefield, rising from the muck of a submerged area, rises a horrible apparition. This apparition charges towards Izzek at quite the speed. Instinctively, Izzek grabs his broadsword and draws it. I think I'm going to actually roll an oracle a little bit on this. Let's see. This apparition is trying to control itself, but we'll see how successful it is to control itself as it moves. Will it attack Izzek? Let's see. I want to do a yes/no on this. If I can find my yes/nos, there it is. I'm going to bend it a little bit in favor as this spirit is trying to control itself. I'm going to do a 1, 2 extreme no, 2, 3, 4 no, 5, 6 yes. 4. As the ghost approaches Izzek, screaming, its claws outstretched, and Izzek has his sword ready. You know, ghosts can only be hit by magic weapons, of which Izzek does not have one. I think I'm also going to make an additional roll on myths and legends. Ghosts are a little more common in this world. Izzek has already laid one to rest by resolving her problems last chapter. But I'm curious, does he know that spirits can only be damaged by magic weapons? Because that might make a pretty big impact on how this conversation is going to go. Myths and legends of, I think it's still at a 10. I'm going to roll a 10. 6, yeah. Izzek is aware ghosts can only be harmed by magic weapons. So he drew his sword instinctively, but he is going to do his best. I guess he will have to flee, I guess, if this wraith attacks him, because he won't be able to harm him. Ghosts can be affected by persuasion. However, this ghost did stop. I think if this ghost does go aggro, Izzek will try to talk him off the ledge. But at least the moment the ghost halts, now that the ghost is in front of him, Izzek can see that this is a tall, thin, armored, and full plate mail elf. His armor is very ornate. He looks very regal, might even say arrogant. But it's strange. At this moment, he is composed, but when he was charging forward, he was not composed. He was practically monstrous. Izzek can tell, and has knows of ghosts that have gone mad. He made his mythology, so I'm going to say he knows things about ghosts pretty well at this point. Ghosts, as they grow older, you know, maybe when they're first ghosts, they are almost like humans, but the longer they exist on this plane, the less human they become. When I say human, I mean kin, you know, human in general. Civilized. They maintain their mortal coil in death. But the longer they exist on this plane, the further that mortal coil and memory sleep away, and the more monstrous and undead they become. It must be taking tremendous will of the spirit to maintain whatever control it currently has left in him. He approaches Izzek and halts, and he growls and he clenches the side of his head. And he says to Izzek, "You, cursed descendant of my enemy, you are here on the battlefield where I died. You have come at a fortuitous time. I have a request of you." Izzek doesn't respond. I wrote down this request a little bit too. I wanted to get a little more formal. Oops, I bent my paper the wrong way. Hold on. Good Lord. Okay, here we are. You nightkin, descendant of my hatred enemies. And as he says that, his body shifts again. He grows monstrous as if possessed, and he clenches his head. Die! Nightkin must die! I have killed hundreds of your kind. I will kill hundreds more. Izzek steps back, sword at the ready, but the ghost gains his composure once again. You, I command you, Nightkin. You must finish what your ancestors did not. My brothers and sisters still walk these hills, unable to move to the green lands. Once again, his form shifts into this monstrous being. Cursed! Cursed! All Nightkin must be destroyed. This battle will not end. Does this ghost lose his composure? I'm going to flip that. I still think he's got pretty good control. I'm going to keep that D6 dice roll. On a 5 and 6, he will attack Izzek. On a 6, this monstrous form just grows into this ball of rage, and it holds this ghostly, non-existent longsword and lunges at Izzek. Izzek's going to try to talk him down. This ghost can be persuaded at a bane. This ghost is trying to keep control, wants to talk to Izzek. I'm not going to give him a bane. I think I'm just going to give him a normal persuasion roll to try to talk the ghost down. He does not succeed. I'm going to push that roll. I'm going to give myself the disheartened condition. I really don't want this ghost to attack me. Okay, 8. That push succeeded. Phew! So he talks to his ghost. He says, "Ghost, please, I'm not here to harm you. Say what you will, spirit. I will not interrupt." And just before the sword hits Izzek, this ghost regains his control and his composure. Okay, what's next? Their vigilance, my kin's vigilance, has become a blight. Nothing new here can grow. You will grant my kin the final rest. I command this of you, and you will obey me. And he assumes this most regal, haughty visage. This is a ghost that in life was in full command of everyone around him. He ruled with authority, and even in death, he expects to be obeyed with authority. He begins to speak a curse in ancient Elvish. Not that Izzek really understands Elvish, but it clearly is. This chant in ancient Elvish wraps around Izzek's heart. He feels his chest tightening, and he knows that a terrible doom has been placed upon him. Kill my brothers and sisters. Put an end to their vigilance so that new growth can occur. This ghost starts backing up. He's pointing at his grave with his sword, beckoning Izzek to follow. Sure enough, Izzek follows to where this ghost rose from the grave, and under about a couple inches of water, old white bones poke up from the earth. This was once a grave, but over time, the slow flowing water has erased the dirt that this grave covered. Bones appear, and a glint of metal. Take my sword. Take my sword. And at that moment, he shifts again. That monstrous side of him coming through. My blade has killed hundreds of your kind, and it will kill hundreds more before his thirst is quenched. And then, poof, the spirit vanishes from sight. Izzek digs in the muck at the grave and pulls out a scabbard, ornate, made of metal. Looks like it's made of copper and bronze, gold inlay, very ornate. Oak leaves decorated, tree symbolism decorated, obviously very elvish. Next, when he pulls out that scabbard, there's more metal in there. He digs around and he pulls out a sword, a beautiful shining long sword. But when Izzek touches it with his hands and pulls it out, it hurts. His hand immediately goes numb when he clenches the handle. It maintains its grip, but this sword does not want to be held by him. The sword is not meant to be held by a knightkin. I made the weapon. Let's take a look. I knew through the course of this that, my last chapter, poor Izzek got nothing. Final chapter, he got no money. He got no bags of treasure. Normally when I complete a chapter, he should get treasure. He got none. Matter of fact, he lost money. It was time to give Izzek a gift. But the gift with the price. This is the great prince, Nezerman's, did I pronounce the word? I just made up the word. Oh, Nereman's sword. Obviously, a magic longsword. But it is a cursed elven sunblade. Mastercrafted magic. It is a longsword, 2d8. Mastercrafted, a little bit of better durability. It does an extra d6 damage against nocturnal creatures or kin. Indeed, this blade has tasted the blood and flesh of hundreds of nightkin. When Izzek picks it up, he can feel it in his bones. Elven sunblades are infamous upon his kind. Well-known killers of nightkin, dreaded by all nightkin. Yet this elven sunblade, tendrils of darkness runs through it. Tendrils of blackness run through this light, like veins through a body. Extra d6 damage against elves. This sword still is here to achieve its original master's purpose. His brethren must die for new growth to form. And then lastly, once per day, absorb any spell targeting the wielder. The next attack made by this weapon is made with a boon. Inscribed on the sword at the base of the blade above the hilt is a single word, Aldrir. This is the magic sword, Aldrir, which Izzek now wields on behalf of the spirit who has placed a terrible curse upon him to rid this land of the last of its elves, even though supposedly no elf dwells here. Izzek's not sure what this means, what this encounter is, who are his brethren, where are his brethren. But soon enough, Izzek will run afoul of the elves of the vacant empire. This is it. Thank you all. Have a good week. We'll see you for waypoint 2, which is an unknown waypoint. So I will be using oracles and whatnot. We'll see, all of us will see what's going to be awaiting Izzek at waypoint 2. Even I don't know yet. Thank you.